The Women's World Cup is already underway, but since we're still in the early stages of the group stage, you haven't missed too much. So it's time to go over the players for the Barça Femení who are taking part at the Women's World Cup, starting with Group A, where Graham Hansen has already taken a loss to New Zealand, but she and Ingrid Engen are going to have to rebound in some way. If Norway is going to make it past the group stage, there's also Switzerland, who have Anna Maria Cernakovic, and she is also in Group A. In Group B, there's Asisat Aswala, who, for Barca, she may be the backup striker, usually the backup center forward, but for Nigeria, she is everything. She is their talismanic figure, and Nigeria, they're the best that the African continent has had to offer. They've made every single World Cup that they've been able to participate in, and if Nigeria are going to get very far in this tournament, that means that Barcelona's striker in Aswala is going to have had a pretty big tournament, I'd say. We'll come back to Group C, because in Group D, there is England, and while they have a ton of injuries, Beth Mead is out, Fran Kirby is out, Leah Williamson is out, but they do have Kerry Walsh and Lucy Bronze from Barça Femení, the two English players, and England is still, even with all those injuries, a favorite, so you'd have to say that Kerry Walsh is likely, having just won the Champions League, of course, with Barcelona, she and Bronze can continue to raise their stock and continue to make bigger and bigger names for themselves if they have big tournaments for England. On to Group F and Brazil, there was one representative from Barça Femení in JC playing for Brazil. And while the team from South America is not as strong as they have been in the past, just in terms of the strength of their squad, also some issues and disputes with their FA, again, with every team that seems to be a recurring theme. Again, we'll get back to Spain in a second here. But JC should be expected to start for Brazil. We'll see how far they can get in this competition. They at least do have the name cachet that they should have some confidence there in Group F. Group G is Fridolina Ralph playing for Sweden. While they aren't necessarily favorites in this tournament, there's a lack of depth in their squad. They do have some top-level talent like Ralph, who was arguably one of the best 5 players in the entire women's game over the last 12 months. She may be a converted left back who gets forward on the wing for Barcelona, but for Sweden, she's going to be a forward, she's going to be up top, and expected to bang in a lot of goals. Also in Group G is Italy, and while we won't see, or likely won't see, 16-year-old Giulia Dragoni on the field for Italy, she is one of the more promising players in the entire women's game, and along with Vicky Lopez, Barcelona have 2 of, the top 10 to 20 most talented teenage midfielders in all of world football. So again, Dragoni probably won't feature for Italy. Just having her get that World Cup experience from the bench could pay dividends for her season with Barcelona. Remember, she signed in January, played with the Barça Femení B, but now this World Cup could be great experience for her, and who knows what she can prove in preseason with the Barça Femení. All we do know is that there is a ton of depth in that midfield, and it is a hard task to get any minutes. You can ask Vicky Lopez in that Barcelona midfield. So depth really being the only issue that is holding her back at all from first team minutes with Barcelona. And finally, let's head back to Group C. We got to talk about Spain again and kind of go through the timeline, because that's what this was. Back at the Euros last summer, there was some disappointment with training, with tactics, and particularly with manager Jorge Vilda and his managing of injuries throughout the squad. So major leaders stepped up and said, hey, we got a problem with this, including Jenny Hermoso, Irene Paredes, and Patri. So in September, Las Quince, or the 15 players from that Spain squad, marginally made up of Barcelona players, decided that they were going to refuse call-ups, and especially starting in that September, after that first call-up, they said, don't call us up, we don't want to be a part of this. Of course, the FA, that being the Spanish FA, led by Luis Rubiales, doubled down on it, supported the manager in Vilda, said no, he's not going anywhere, you all have to get over it, and they didn't really want to, so they decided not to be called up. But then, as of March, with the World Cup approaching, with sponsors and different bigwigs with deep pockets having a say in certain things, it seemed like the FA was willing to make some concessions, while the players themselves were going to have to make some concessions. So with Alexia Putellas coming back from injury, finally, potentially to be part of the World Cup, which she is part of the squad, she acted as a moderator, and so some of the players on the 15 did return, including some of the Barcelona players, that being Aitana Bonmati, Ona Batlle, who's the new signing from Manchester United, and Mariona Caldante have returned to the squad. They joined Alexia Putellas in the team for the World Cup, along with Catalina Cole, a B-team regular in Maria Perez, Laia Cadoni, Salma Periello, and Irene Paredes returning as well. The 4 Barcelona players who did not return, however, Sandra Panos, Mape Leon, Patri, and Claudia Pina, those are arguably 4 starters for this Spanish national team. And for Paños, she had agreed to return, but the manager, that being Vilde, did not want to upset the balance of power with the goalkeeper position and create some kind of controversy, so she was left out of the squad. In the case of Pina, Patri, and Mapi Leon, they said, no, we do not want to be a part of this. We refuse to be called up continually for this World Cup, so who knows where their international futures lie. With Spain and all this consternation and everything going on, there was also some disputes before Aitana Bonmati came back after El Clasico. That made some headlines, so I don't know. It feels a lot like France in 2010 when there was that mutiny, when it all broke apart. I could see Spain not getting the results they want in the first 2 games, and then all hell breaks loose for that 3rd game if they don't make it past the group stage. So we'll have to see. There are plenty of favorites in this tournament. I didn't mention Germany, who, led by the Wolfsburg contingent, who are probably pretty bitter about not winning the Champions League final. They would love to exact some revenge on some of these other teams and the representatives from Barça Femení on these other teams at the Women's World Cup. I myself, through some family and myself, will also be rooting for the U.S. women's national team as well as the Philippines national team making their debut in Group A. So excited to see all the different storylines that the Women's World Cup has already begun again and will offer throughout this tournament. So I hope you take a chance to watch the Women's World Cup in Australia. And as always, until next time, Forza Barça.